Welcome back to the CPC Podcast, No Ordinary Day in Procurement. It's a podcast that looks at all aspects of the procurement world, particularly within education. Once again, I'm Jack Horton. I'm the Customer Engagement Manager for the CPC, and today I'm joined by Pete McMullan. He is the Head of Contracting Services. Today we're looking at sort of the Procurement Act 23 and how contracting can help. But do you want to introduce yourself, Peter?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jack. Hello, I'm Peter McMullan. Like Jack said, I'm Head of Contracting at CPC. I've been doing procurement now for 21 years. I was looking back at when I started.
Long time.
I've been with CPC since April 2018, but a little bit about my background. Like everyone in procurement, I fell into the job.
Yep.
So I came straight out of university, fell into construction industry, and I was working as a procurement officer on live construction sites for 5 years. And then I moved into local government and did 8 years at Salford Council. So that was my first exposure to public procurement. I then moved into education with CPC in 2018, and I've been managing the contracting team since 2022.
It is a genuine sort of common occurrence. Everybody we've spoken to so far on this podcast has said, I fell into it.
Absolutely. And I've yet to meet anyone in this.
Yeah, you don't wake up and go, I want to be a procurement official.
No one does. And most people don't know what procurement is when they first start. I was no different.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to it than people might realise.
You've got 21 years in it so far, so there's clearly a career there for some people. So for the uninitiated, what is the contracting team at CPC and what do you and the team do?
What don't they do, I guess?
Good answer.
So the contracting team are responsible for procuring and managing the 80 plus frameworks and DPSs that we offer out to our membership. So there are, I think at last count, 11 of us in the team, procurement professionals. We also have a help desk function.
Yep.
So that's available to all our members throughout the week via phone, email and web. But essentially what we do is we put together the procurement agreements that our end users use. So there's a lot of work in understanding what our members need, what their procurement needs are, understanding what the capacity of the market is to supply those needs, and then putting together framework agreements that satisfy both sides of that, really. So we do a lot, and no day is alike. There's a lot of variety in the work.
I mean, I come into the office once or twice a month, and even today, some of the conversations I've overheard you having, some of the queries that are coming through. Can you help me with this legal inquiry? Can you? So I imagine there's quite a lot to keep your hands in.
Very colourful. But it's interesting. There's a lot of variety to the work, and it keeps us coming back.
Fantastic. Well, so what's the main drive, would you say, for our listeners to using one of the frameworks that we've got?
Well, I think it's probably worth reminding ourselves what a framework is to begin with. So a framework is essentially an umbrella agreement with pre-approved suppliers that allows you as an end user to buy a variety of different goods, works and services whilst being fully compliant with the overarching procurement regulations. So as we know, the Procurement Act came in last year. So in terms of what a framework is, it's essentially a vehicle that an end user like a school or a college could utilise to procure any number of different things. Why they would do it is the important bit. So what are the benefits? Well, a lot of our members have many different priorities within their institutions. They're there primarily to educate learners.
Of course.
And they might not have the time, the capacity or the expertise to run a full-blown procurement process under the Procurement Act. So what a framework does is offer them a real way of saving time, and it allows them to engage with pre-approved suppliers on pre-approved terms and conditions. So you know that the call-off contract is essentially set up. The suppliers have agreed to be bound by those terms and conditions. So you've got a greater minimisation of your legal risk. You've got a smaller pool of suppliers to work with. So big time saving there. If you're going on an open tender basis, you might be. There's no limit to how many bids you might receive, and certainly for some of our tenders that we run for frameworks, we get totally oversubscribed.
I can imagine.
And 100 plus suppliers might respond to a tender. And if you think about the time it's going to take to evaluate and process all those, what we can offer really is a massive time saving to that client who wants
You've vetted them, haven't you, before?
We've vetted them on financial, health and safety, environmental, insurance, capability, quality, a whole host of different things. Price is obviously a really important one. So we've taken a lot of that work off the hands of the end user so that they can just concentrate on what's important to them, which is going to be either their goods, their service, their works, doing it in a quick manner, but in a way that they can truly demonstrate that they've got best value, and that they've done it fairly, openly and transparently. And I suppose the last thing to sort of add to that is, because we are 10,000 members plus strong now, the opportunities that we can offer suppliers are far greater than what a single institution could do. And, you know, in particular, the economies of scale that we can drive through, that buying power is so much more greater than when we act together than when we act separately. So, you know, just to recap, it's time saving, it's compliance, it's value for money, and it's ease of use. That's Fantastic. Why I think you should use a framework.
And also, we are, my team, so the regional procurement advisors, we promote the ones that you put together. So you do the hard work. We then go, look how amazing these things are. You've got dedicated contract managers as well that can help them out. So they are on hand.
So every single framework has a dedicated framework lead. Their details are available all over, primarily on the website, and their job is to really make sure that the framework gets used properly, that if anyone has an issue it can be resolved quickly and to everyone's satisfaction, and just to make sure that the outcomes are actually being achieved for that institution, and keeping the suppliers proactively engaged with the people calling off the frameworks is really important. So you've got, you know, free to access support service there in the framework manager as well as, you know, the help desk, the RPAs, you know, there's a whole...
It's all synergy, isn't it?
There's a lot, and it is a genuine collective effort. Yes, our team put together the frameworks, but that in itself isn't going to get the throughput that we need. So there's a dedicated comms and marketing team, there's an IT team to make sure the website functions correctly, business services to collect spend. You know, it's a multifaceted...
There's so many levers that our members can access. Well, you know, it's like from my own point of view, it's nice for me to go out and talk to members and say, look how amazing these are. We are there for that general procurement advice and guidance of how to use the framework, how to access what we've got available. But knowing that there's somebody that actually put that framework in place and knows the ins and outs, the T's and C's, the nitty gritty bits.
Absolutely.
It's so nice to then go, I might not be able to help you on that query, but we've got Pete, we've got Ria, we've got these people in the team that can help them out. So it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
So you say we've got 80 frameworks or around that, and they're growing and so on all the time. About a quarter of them are DFE approved.
Yeah.
What goes into that? What process do you have to go through, and what does that actually mean?
It's so we currently have 24 of our agreements.
So over a quarter. Good.
And that number's risen in the last 12 months. I think 12 months ago we had 15.
Yeah, I remember last year saying so many. Now you're saying 24, so it's clearly changing all the time.
It's something we've invested quite a lot of time in, because obviously the DFE are the sector regulator. They champion best practice, and they're very keen on ensuring that the sector delivers value for money through their procurement activities. And so what they've done in the last few years, they've got various services that are available to schools. So one, for example, is the Get Help Buying for Schools team, where they can actually triage and help end users with a procurement issue. But one of the other things they've started doing is, like you say, recommending framework solutions for end users to access. So we have to go through a very rigorous vetting process for each framework that we put forward. So it's assessed on a lot of different things. So it's assessed first on compliance. I think that's the first thing that we all need to make sure we've got in place. So is it going to break any of the...
And that is the priority, isn't it, for everybody? When you're procuring, it needs to be compliant,
That's the sort of the building block on everything else. That's the foundation. So is it compliant? And I'm pleased to say that all our agreements are compliant. Coverage, So does it provide what it is that the end users actually need to buy? What are the key features? So when we talk about features, we're often talking about how easy is it to use, and to respond to that, we often design the frameworks to have very flexible call-off mechanisms. So there'll be direct award commonly, there'll be further competition so that users can utilise that agreement in whatever manner best fits their needs at the time. Direct award often works for those with a really urgent need that wasn't planned, and it's quite a reactive need, and you can quickly put in place a contract by direct awarding it, but being fully compliant. We would always recommend, if you've got the time, to do a further competition, because that gives the suppliers the maximum opportunity to compete.
It's going to be,
And I suppose it gives you, as a contracting authority, the easiest way of demonstrating that you've got best value from that procurement exercise. But nevertheless, they look at the features, the value for money. So they look at the total spend that's gone through the framework historically, the outcomes, the savings that people have achieved. And the end user experience is really important. So did that end user have a good experience using that framework? If they didn't, then they're unlikely to recommend it.
Of course, yeah.
So it goes through all these different checks to make sure that it's going to be up to the standard that they need. And what I would say is that there obviously is a proliferation of frameworks out there in the sector. Yeah. We're not the only PSBO operating out in the sector. But that in itself creates an issue for end users, because you sort of think, I'm going to use a framework that will reduce down
then
my
you spend
options.
half your day looking at the ones that are available and which one do you use.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've been there, done that.
And there might be 20 different frameworks for the thing that you want to procure. And I guess what the DFE's recommending frameworks does for us is it provides that independent assessment of all the different agreements out there in the sector, and it allows an end user to quickly identify something that's going to work for them as an education provider. So it's a time saver for them, and it's good for us because it promotes the good work that we're doing. So we hope we can get more agreements in time. I'm never satisfied with the number that we've got.
Well, to say it's growing though, it's going in the right direction. We like to say it's sort of the gold star, isn't it? We when we go to events and we promote them, we say if you see that, it's the gold star, it's the gold standard, and if you went to the DFE, use their buying for help, get help buying for schools, they'd put you in our direction anyway. Yeah. So it's
by no means a given either. They have high standards. As I said, we're not the only PSBO operating in the space. So to get that recommendation is a really good kite mark of the frameworks that we have.
Fantastic work that it's growing as well. Yeah, fantastic. So we're now just pivoting a little bit towards procurement as a whole. We're now obviously a year in from the launch of PA23. What sort of changes have you seen in your role, and what sort of changes of the wider team, or trials and tribulations, or even just positives have the team sort of picked up from its implementation?
It's been a really big change for me personally. Right. Yeah, it has. It's been a significant expansion of my role because everything's new. It's been a big change management process, really, both internally. So internally, we've done a whole host of training on for staff. All staff at procurement level undertook the e-learning offered by the Cabinet Office, and several sort of more senior members of the procurement staff have undertaken the deep dive advanced practitioner training. And it quickly became apparent through those training sessions how much change was coming. So we deliberately started our work on the changes well ahead of the February 25 go live date. We were engaged right from the point the Cabinet Office first published the green paper through to the white paper. We've been involved in the communities of practice organised by the Cabinet Office. So we've really sort of used every opportunity we have to be engaged and to try and represent the sector, really, and champion issues that are important to the sector. Internally, we've had to do a lot of work on our documentation. Obviously, we have a suite of documentation that was all need throwing in the bin and restarting again. And we've had to do a lot more around transparency, notices. So, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners will be aware, that
it's the bread and butter of our work as RPAs at the moment. Bit of a plug, come to us if you need help, but we are constantly firefighting the notices. When do I need to publish it? What does it actually mean? What's included? What's the school's exemption mean? So I get it completely. Like, the notices is huge. The transparency requirements have just completely changed.
And it's been hard getting across the messages to procurement people. So you consider what it might have been like working with the supplier market or non-procurement
stakeholders. Absolutely,
we've had to do a lot of work with stakeholders, making sure everyone's as prepared as they can be. There was an onus on everyone. There was no one who was going to get through the Procurement Act without acting. And it's making sure everyone was aware of their own responsibilities and what the future looked like. And I suppose, to go back to the second part of your question, what impact has it had on us as like a team and our operations? I'd like to think we've really seen the opportunity in the Act. So things like, we have made pre-market engagement a default part of any tender process that we do now, because we really see the value in learning from the market, refining our requirements and continually improving the offer through those conversations before we go out to market. So that's been a massive positive for us. We've got a lot out of pre-market engagement. We've also done a couple of competitive flexible procedures, which is obviously one of the new routes to market. We'll come back to that shortly on another point. But that in itself has been really useful, because we've been allowed to design bespoke procurement processes that really reflect the thing that we're trying to procure. And sometimes you need things like a dialogue stage with the market to ensure that they're happy, they're bought in, and they're going to support what it is that we're actually going to try and award at the end of it. Without that buy-in and without that guarantee, we don't have that confidence. So,
and they're the bread, but they do it as day-to-day, don't they? They've got the expertise in the field, so we learn from them as much as they learn from us. So And
we're doing things like open frameworks now. So traditionally, we've offered a lot of what we would now call a closed framework. So once the tender is done and everyone's bid and we've awarded, that supplier list gets locked down for the term of the framework. Under the open frameworks, we're going to be allowed to refresh the competition partway through the agreement. And I think that just allows for new suppliers to get added during the life of the agreement. It means that the agreement won't go stale, and we're allowed to refresh it, and suppliers can refine their offers.
They've got a second chance or a second bite at the apple.
And I think that is going to create some more interesting and engaging frameworks in the long term. And the fact that we can run those for 8 years gives us a bit more opportunity to develop things like a pipeline of contracts that are going to get procured through it, and thus get even more buy-in from the suppliers. So lots of positives, really. It's not been completely plain sailing. The notice regime is difficult,
intense,
but we're getting there. Yeah,
good. I mean, in terms of the open frameworks, I must admit it's been good for us as who work with the suppliers to, when you tell them, oh, you've got no chance now, it's closed, 4 or 5 years time, come back to us. Now they're actively saying, oh, I'll give you a call in 2 years then instead. So it makes everything a little bit more competitive, doesn't it? And it makes them more engaged more frequently.
And what I would say is, I've noticed during my time at CPC that our members have a preference towards incumbency. And an open framework gives us a chance to work with incumbents, which we wouldn't have previously had. So, that conversation, the framework's locked in now for the next 4 years. We can say, well, in the next 18 months, we're going to be refreshing that. And again,
keeps them on the toes.
2 years' time and 2 years' time. So it allows us to get new and innovative suppliers onto the framework.
It's nice to hear it in a positive light, because I think a lot of people see PA23, particularly me when I'm speaking to members, and they are so scared about the PA23 and, there's so much more to do. But listening to the positive side of things,
I think you've got to embrace change. I think,
absolutely.
I probably spent the early part of my career resisting change.
Yeah.
Change scared me quite a bit. But
As it does all of us, yeah.
I've certainly since becoming a manager, I've learned to go with change a lot more. Worry about what we can control, not what we can't. The Procurement Act was happening whether we liked it or not.
Yeah, you got to get in line.
Get involved and embrace it, I think.
Nice. I like that answer. So you mentioned about the CFP that you've done, competitive flexible procedure, and obviously we'll touch base on that in a second, but what's some exciting things that you've got coming up in the pipeline?
So exciting, Jack. We've got lots coming.
Riveting stuff.
We've already broken quite a lot of new ground already this year. So I think before I get on to what's coming new, I'll just touch on what's new that's already come.
Yep.
So we had, for the first time, we've awarded an education professional services agreement, which I think really aligns well with our sort of giving back values. It focuses on SEND and well-being in learner institutions. So it's got much more focus around the curriculum, leadership development, SEND, as I said, things like translation services. Education institutions are becoming increasingly more diverse, and we need to reflect the services that we offer to those institutions with sort of more up-to-date services. So I think that's been really interesting. We've also awarded a utilities DPS, and in the last few weeks we awarded a renewable energy portfolio with our partners at Sustainable Energy First. So we're always scanning the horizon. We do gap analysis every year to try and understand what might have changed in the last 12 months, where the gaps may exist in the portfolio.
So you're welcoming people coming to us and saying,
Absolutely.
we think there's a gap. If it's a member saying we've always wanted a framework around this, then...
Yeah, I mean, there was one such example. As you know, we've got lots of colleagues in the consultancy side of the business, and all of a sudden we were getting requests for medical simulation aids.
Quite bespoke.
So really high-tech mannequins that you can perform different, practice medical procedures on, do training, things like that. And obviously there is no framework for that. But with our colleagues at NWUPC, we've been able to award a medical simulation training aid framework. And these are sort of the things that come out of left field. We're absolutely, if there's a genuine demand for this thing in the education sector, that's what we're here to do.
For it.
We're there to do that. And I suppose that's where that leads nicely onto our big project for the year, which is our new construction framework. So this is probably been the last 12 months of my life.
I know. I remember when we first discussed, you raised it with me saying we've got this really exciting thing, and then I mentioned it to my team, and we were like, when's it happening? And then it's been sort of going in the background.
It's been a long time in the making, and it's all the stars have aligned really. So it sort of came off the back of the changes brought around by the Procurement Act. And we've actually, so this is a project that we've done in partnership with the legal firm Waitmans and the technical consultancy Identity Consult. And what we're really looking to do there is bring together different professional expertise to put together a really unique offering in the sector for construction and capital works. So we've delivered this as a competitive flexible procedure. We had a initial conditions of participation stage where we were assessing bidders on minimum standards that they would need to hit to be on the framework. We've then done a dialogue stage with the suppliers who progressed to that stage on the forms of contract and the commercial model. That was really important stage to us because so often in a construction setting, an end user will just be given a form of contract and say, right, off you go, draft that and agree it with the supplier. And that's where all the problems start because it's not bespoke. It's not bespoke. They don't have legal expertise and they don't fully understand the impacts of what, different variations in legal drafting could do. So we've got one of the benefits of this framework is that we've got pre-agreed model form of contracts that we have bespoked. So they've been bespoke by Waitmans. We've got a specialist solicitor who does this day in, day out at Waitmans called Richard Vaughan. And he's developed a suite of JCT and NEC contracts, as well as a demolition contract, that have been developed in partnership and agreed with the market, so that when an end user comes to call off the framework, the contract is not an issue. It's all agreed.
Wonderful.
And all they have to do is update it to reflect the particulars of their project. But there's a few sort of different features of this framework that I'd just like to sort of highlight.
Go for it, yeah, absolutely.
We have developed something genuinely unique here. So there's 7 key features, and I don't want this to turn into a full sales pitch.
No, go for it.
But it's important that I cover them.
If it's the first of its kind, my friend, we want to hear about it.
Okay,
So
so
go
the
for it.
first one, and I've already touched on this, is market alignment. We did absolutely loads of pre-market engagement, both with suppliers and with end users, about what is your experience of procuring major value works, either on an open basis or through frameworks. Tell us what those experiences were, good, bad, or indifferent. And we learnt so much from those conversations. And those conversations really informed the design of everything that followed. So what were the pain points, what worked well, and how can we design a solution that responds to those? We've also obviously done the dialogue stage. So lots of alignment work was done to make sure this was going to fit the goal. The next thing is compliance.
Yeah.
So obviously the first thing, as I said, the building block of any good framework is that it complies with the regs.
Yep.
This is fully compliant with the Procurement Act 2023. But further than that, it also aligns with the National Public Procurement Statement. I might have got that wrong. The National Public Policy Statement, the NPPS.
Yeah.
The NPPS. It aligns with all the features of that. It aligns with the Construction Gold Standard and the Construction Playbook. So these are all different standards, most of which are set by central government, about how not only the procurement is delivered, but how the project is delivered in practice. And we've made sure that the framework fully aligns with all the requirements of those standards, so fully compliant. We also got the whole process endorsed by a leading procurement King's Council at the outset.
Okay.
So we belt and braced the compliance, because that is one of the major issues that members came back and spoke to us on, is the compliance thing. The thing that we were trying to avoid was audit clawback.
Yeah.
So quite often a construction project is funded either in full or in part by a grant funder.
Yeah.
And they will provide that funding with a lot of stipulations around how the procurement is done, and largely to align with, public procurement principles. If that project isn't delivered in accordance with those principles, there's a chance that the funded body has to repay some of that funding back to the grant funder. So we wanted to make sure that was never going to happen. Delivery assurance. So we have a suite of KPI monitoring and reporting, so we can see full transparency around how contractors are actually delivering projects. Brilliant. And end users will be given access to that platform so they can see exactly how the framework is performing and make decisions based on that performance. I've already mentioned the watertight model forms of contract, but as well as that, we're going to be offering training seminars to end users and a whole suite of supporting documents to aid their journey through a call-off. It's highly transparent. So what we're actually going to do is all end users are going to be given a compliance pack when they call off the framework, and it deals with all these issues. So Procurement Act 2023, the National Procurement Policy Statement, the Construction Goal. It will speak to them as to how the framework hits those standards. Right. So that if they ever get audited or assessed as to why did you choose that framework, they've got all the information.
Peace of mind.
There. It's the peace of mind.
Yeah.
I'm nearly finished.
No, keep going.
Flexibility. So there's actually going to be 4 different award methodologies through this framework. 2 different types of direct, 2 different types of direct award, and 2 different types of further competition, including 2-stage and single stage. And the last thing is ease of use. It's all going to be done for you. So, we've got the compliance assured, we've got our legal risk management assured, and we've also got a professional advisory team on hand to support you with any call-off. So
incredible.
Really excited. The last thing I'll say is that it's going to be coming out in July 26. So just a month away.
Yeah. Fantastic.
So full details to follow, and that's the end of
it's
my
quite
sales
exciting. I think it's exciting because we've heard about it for about a year now, company wide, and we've been all sort of following it and just going, where is it? And I mean, for you, I bet it's a massive relief to get it out there
I'm
finally.
dying to get it out and get into the next stage, because the real interesting part comes next. We want to start seeing the projects coming through. We want to see the outcomes. And we want to see the fruits of our labour in some great projects getting commissioned by some great contractors.
Fantastic. So keep an eye out on all the comms,
keep an eye out,
socials, everything. It will be going out in July.
You'll be sick.
You've got it here first. So taking a bit of a break from procurement in general then and all the heaviness or the heavy lifting of that, what motivates you to come to work for CPC every day?
I think it's going to sound really cliche, but the people, the culture. I really like working at CPC. I really like the team that I manage. They're all some genuinely lovely people who work at CPC. People who genuinely want to do the right thing. I think we've all bought into the ethos. The fact that we're a charity gives us that sense that there's a legacy that we're leaving behind. I really like that. And I think on a slightly selfish note, I really like the fact that I work in an organisation where procurement is the core focus. As I said at the beginning, I've worked in lots of different industries, and in those industries, procurement could be seen as the barrier, the hurdle, the back office function. And I think what's really refreshing at CPC is people understand A, what procurement is, and then B, the value that it brings. So having such a sort of strong emphasis on procurement makes the job really interesting and not make me feel like I'm a hindrance to anyone, like I'm actually helping.
I think you've hit the nail on the head with the whole sort of like, I've mentioned this before in previous episodes, but I think it's the fact that there's so many people within the organisation that you can lean on. For me as someone who's not actually as procurement savvy as yourself, because you're doing it every day, but I know I can go to you all the time and say, have I given this right guidance? Is this correct, or can I just bounce this off you for a minute? It's so nice having that ethos. I think it's fantastic, and I
do that as well. I'm bouncing ideas all the time off people, as you'll know.
There's expertise everywhere, isn't there? And that's what's good. You can pull on these people wherever you need it, and it's the same with if a member's got a query, I might not know the answer, but I know who to go to.
There's always someone who knows.
And it's great, and I like that answer. Really good.
Thank you.
So, in your opinion, back to the procurement at hand, what is a big procurement topic that CPC members and suppliers need to look out for over the next sort of year or so?
I had to think about this, and I still think, for me, we're around data and transparency. I think they're big drivers at the moment. Obviously, it's the Act brought in lots of mandatory requirements around reporting, and I would say to some of our members, we obviously have the schools exemption, which is a great benefit, and I think that exemption recognises the many competing priorities that our members have.
I think it's administrative burden, isn't it? It's alleviating that stress.
Competing priorities. At the end of the day, the goal is to educate our students, isn't it? I think that and procurement inevitably will fall by the wayside a little bit, but nevertheless, I still think there is still a huge emphasis on data and transparency, whether that's published or not. Behind the scenes, I'm seeing a lot more interest now at a higher level outside of the organisation around the spend activity going on in the sector. And I think, proportionality, fairness and transparency are always going to be there, whether they're something we have to report on at a published level or not. So I would say, my advice to members is whether or not you are caught by the school's exemption, I think there's nothing to stop good habits forming.
Absolutely. Yep. I like that.
Keeping a record of your decisions is going to be really key. Why did you make that decision? Why did you choose that route to market? And I think we have an obligation to our suppliers as buyers to continually invest in them. And, if we're running a quotation exercise, let's say, as a member institution, there is still value to be had for an unsuccessful supplier in feeding back to them why they didn't win. What were the what were the merits and drawbacks of their bid that could improve them in the future to make them more competitive next time round. So I'd say, data for me is still the big one for the next 12 months.
Yeah, I think it's a good answer. And I think particularly around keeping a track of your decision making, that's huge, because we know that there's teething issues with PA23 and the notices that you're going to have to publish. And I've had a few queries where people have said, I forgot to do this. What's going to happen? Am I going to get told off? And our advice is, as long as you've kept a good, clear audit of what you've done and you've learned that you should have done that, but I'm going to do it right next time, you should be okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a really good answer. It's just getting your ducks in a row. Yeah. So we've had a few really good answers on this one so far. I think mine was ice cream vans I've procured. We've had blimps or something like that. We've had all sorts. What's the most unusual thing you've ever procured, and what did you learn from that experience?
I had a good think about this one. I've had probably quite a sheltered career in regard. So I've never procured anything really weird.
Right.
But I would go back to when I first started in procurement. So I was fresh-faced out of university, never heard of procurement before, and I somehow fell into a construction site where I was now responsible for procuring all the subcontract packages.
Right.
And as someone who'd never stepped foot on a site before, having project managers come to me asking me to procure curtain walling, soffits, Gabion baskets,
exciting things,
geothermal heating solutions, ETFE roof. These were some of the things I had to procure on my first job. I had no idea what any of these things were. And not did I know what they were, I suddenly had to procure them. So you often get put in a situation where you're like, oh my God, how am I going to start with that? And I think what I did is my sort of approach was two-pronged. So appeal to your suppliers. The suppliers are more than happy to demonstrate their expertise and all the knowledge that they've got. Work with your suppliers. They will fill in the gaps in your knowledge. And I did that extensively when I worked in construction. When the other thing that you can do is, invest in your own development.
That's huge.
So when I knew that I was going to be in construction for 5 years, I invested in my own development. I did a HNC in construction in the built environment. So I understood the basics of how a building gets built. Yeah. And that gave me the tools to be able to have more productive conversations.
I imagine that's helped with the new framework you've been putting together as well, even though it's 20 years later.
Little did I know, 20 years later, I'll be doing it again. It's the gift that keeps on giving. But I would say you've got to invest time into yourself and invest in your suppliers to fill those gaps. I mean, I know from SIPs, when I did my SIPs training, some people came out with anecdotes about the weirdest things, body parts. Yeah. All sorts, satellite arrays in the Chile desert, cheese. No one can prepare you for the things that you're going to be asked of.
No, when I was at Donny Council, it's Doncaster Council, you can tell I'm from Donny, we had food to go. I had to procure food to go for the cafe downstairs. And the day I heard that I was going to be doing taste testing, my eyes lit up. And I was like, I didn't think that I'd be falling into procurement. Yeah. And then one day I'm going to do taste testing at some sites down road at some local bakery. So it's like, where does procurement and taste testing correlate? And it's like, well, it happens. Yeah, it does happen. So
it does. And we go back to that variety again. That's the variety of the role is you never know what's going to crop up next.
No ordinary day in procurement, as we keep saying. Isn't. So finally, how can listeners connect with you? Where can they find you within CPC? How do we grab hold of Peter McMullan?
I'm quite easy to find. Right. I say the obvious place if you want to get in touch with CPC is go to our website first and foremost. If you've got an interest in any particular framework, we have a dedicated framework webpage for every agreement. You'll find all the information there along with the contact info for that framework lead I mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. If you want to get a hold of me, you can contact me via email. You've got me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to engage, pick up the phone. My number's all on the website.
Fabulous.
So I'm happy to engage with anyone who's got a procurement query or just wants to talk procurement.
Brilliant. Open door policy.
Absolutely.
Love it. Well, thank you very much, Peter, for joining us today. Really appreciate it. As part of the podcast, we have been asking the audience to send some questions in. So if you do want to do that, communications@thecpc.ac.uk is where to go. I'm sure that'll be left in the description section. But once again, Peter, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah.
Thanks ever so much.
Bye.